The time that I'm really thinking of actually happened about 6 months ago. So I'm from St. Louis, Missouri, and in the last couple of years there have been a lot of racial tensions. And so it really started with the Michael Brown case, whenever Michael Brown was shot, the 17-year-old kid was shot, and I'm from a suburb in Missouri, so I'm about 40 miles west of where that happened, and from a predominantly white, middle, upper class community, and didn't even see a person of color until I was about 10. And then fast forward to now, so I've been out in San Diego for the last 7 years, so this happened, he was shot in the inner city downtown, and then Ferguson erupted in riots. And so there was all the militarized police came in, and it was just all this turmoil. So I'm out in San Diego studying peace and justice and leadership, and trying to negotiate the tension of studying this in essentially my ivory tower in San Diego, and knowing that all this turmoil is going on back home in my home, essentially, and that there's so much pain and so much anger and so much feelings of injustice. No one on any side is being heard or being listened to or respected or anything. And then to talk to my family about it, my dad or my sister, and to hear them, I want to believe largely unconscious, just make these sort of like, racist comments that I would never believe that they would explicitly identify as racist, but they're just sort of seeing all of this on the news and dismissing this as like, oh, typical, like, that's the worst possible thing you could do is to have a riot, and to, like, if they actually want to create change or they want things to be different, they need to be calm. And it's like, in my head, I'm thinking, like, what do you do when you've had hundreds of years of oppression, and then something like this happens and you feel powerless? Like, of course you're not going to be calm. So I'm struggling to have that conversation with them, and so I just don't. And so for me, that moment of just choosing to be silent made me feel like I was part of the problem, and not having those conversations or not taking that opportunity. So then fast forward, that was December 2014. Fast forward to this last 6 months, whenever, again, racial tensions escalated at the University of Missouri campus, and the black students were pushing for certain things to address the institutionalized racism. There was some protesting going on, and all I can see is like friends from back home that I went to high school with, white friends, saying this is ridiculous, how can we, it's just so stupid, they're overreacting. And it became very much this us and them mentality. It's like they, and us, like, they just need to stop it, or even, much more horrible things. And then, of course, tensions were escalating in the inner city too, where the black community was trying to organize. And I'm following it very closely because it's my home. I mean, these are things that I feel really passionately about, and I try to work with and be in community with people of color and minorities, because I think that it's important for all of us to work together to get to know each other, like at our core. And so then it's just like I just am becoming more enraged every time I talk to my family members who are, like, oh my God, Mizzou's a lost cause, and, it's just so stupid, they're overreacting again, like typical, like if they could just be smart about this. Just these these really racist things that I'm like, and even talking about it now just makes me like, and then, so I serendipitously, or maybe not, a high school classmate of mine just randomly passed away. He's a black man that I went to high school with, and I knew he was good friends with another friend of mine, one of my only black friends growing up in school, because even though there were no rules or anything, it was still pretty much like if you were black, you hung out with black people, and then if you were white, you hung out with white people, and there wasn't a lot of mixing. But I was friends with my friend Dante, and we were really good friends growing up. And I remember, like, it was always, parents would always sort of stop whenever we'd invite him to our birthday parties or whatever, because obviously he didn't fit because of the color of his skin. But I didn't care about that. And then in high school, we drifted apart and then lost contact. I talked to him once in college. He went off to the military and stuff. And so whenever this guy passed away, I sent him a message just asking how he was and saying I'm sorry because I knew they were close. And he's like, hey, give me a call. It's been so long since we've talked. And so I call him. Meanwhile, all this other stuff is going on in the background. I'm like, hey, how are you doing? What's going on? And he just, this is gonna make me cry. He's just like, I'm so scared living in St. Louis. He's like, I have 2 little boys and they're absolutely perfect. And I'm so scared what it means for them to be black and to live in this, where, like, I don't think white people are bad, but they think we are, you know, where we live. And it's so true. Like, in Missouri, it is so bad. And I mean, people are like outwardly racist still. And it's 2016, you know, and so he's just like talking about his boys, like his kids, you know, and he's like, I just want them to grow up in a different world. Like, I just hope that it would be, you know, and I don't know what to do. I feel so helpless. Like, I don't know what to do to change people's minds. And I don't, you know, like, I don't want to not live in this community because these are the people I feel closest to that get me, that understand what this life is like, what it's like to be in this skin, in this color skin, you know, and at the same time, like, it's dangerous here. It is legitimately dangerous, you know, because of perception and what police think and, you know, things like that. And I just remember the realness of that conversation and like I could hear the fear in his voice and like the sadness when he talked about his boys and the anger of feeling so powerless and feeling so taken advantage of and oppressed, and like how that, I mean, just is so, it just like constricts your spirit, you know? And I just remember thinking like that, for me, that conversation, when we got off the phone, I remember we got off the phone and we exchanged some other, you know, I just told him like, you know, I'm here for you, I'm here to listen, I'm doing what I can, you know, in myself and trying to grow myself, and doing what I can in the world, you know, so that you don't have to feel unsafe. And at the same time also feeling like that is so not even enough. And then, so we got off the phone and I just remember just like starting to bawl because it, like, I was just so angry about the injustice and like that, you know, he was made to feel that way for all these reasons. And so then, that really that just stuck with me. And so then I remember the next time I went home, which happened to be a couple weeks later, another conversation with my dad came up and he's like, you know, I think the whole Mizzou thing is ridiculous. And this time I actually felt like, rather than get mad and judge him for not understanding or not knowing, which is only perpetuating the problem, like, I really took it from the stance of like really trying to understand what he meant, and then also like sharing Dante's story, because he knew Dante and he liked him growing up and stuff, about that. And I think like it actually really made him pause and think about that there might be a different way to see this, might be a different way to see what's happening. because he was able to see not as us and them, but as like, this is a real human being that is really suffering because I am continuing to see this person as them, as other. And so many other people are. And so I think like what that conversation with Dante gave me was, I think, a lot of like courage, you know, and feeling the solidarity of our connection and wanting to honor that in not just a space when I'm with him, but in other spaces where I could perhaps, you know, bridge some gaps or create more understanding.
For sure.